All right, it's 12:01, so we'll go ahead and get started with today's Lunch and Learn webinar. Welcome to everyone who's here. We'll continue to keep the waiting room open and let more people filter in as we get started. My name is Carissa Chuka, and I'm the Senior Director of Strategy and Growth at Results Repeat. I'm so excited to host our panelists for today. If you're not familiar with Results Repeat, we are a digital marketing agency based in the Philadelphia area. We do SEO, digital advertising, and website design and development. I'm really excited about today's discussion about creating content that ranks. A few things that I want to cover. Just a reminder, this presentation is being recorded, which you probably noticed when you logged into Zoom today. All attendees will receive a copy of the slide deck after the call today, so just feel free to sit back and enjoy and know that the notes will be coming to you after. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat box at the bottom of the Zoom to ask any questions to our panelists. We'll do a quick Q&A at the end, which is my favorite part of the presentation, so stick around for that. And if you can't stick around or we run a little bit over, we will, we'll be sending out the recording, and we'll also have this on our YouTube. So we have a lot of good information to squeeze into our short time. So we'll jump right in, and I will introduce the speakers to you. Katie, if you want to go on to the next slide, that would be awesome, even though we can already see your smiling face there. So from the Results Repeat side of the house, we have Katie Guidotti. Katie's been with our company for 5 years and works on the SEO team. Before joining us at Results Repeat, Katie was an on-air meteorologist. So she transferred her passion for analyzing weather data into measuring and analyzing SEO strategies and data for marketing and for our customers here at Results Repeat. And Katie's going to be sharing some tactics for getting your content to rank in the search engines. And then our guest speaker for today is Noel. Sarah is the founder and CEO of Tiny Marketing. And as a former in-house marketer, Sarah knows firsthand what it's like to work with limited resources. She helps small marketing departments streamline, systemize, automate, process, and transform their departments into efficient content marketing machines. She has an impressive track record of helping clients increase organic, referral, email, and social traffic through content marketing. And today she'll be sharing tips for crafting engaging content that is educational, entertaining, and worth sharing. So without any further ado, I will let Katie jump right into today's presentation.
Yes, and I'm going to quickly reshare our slideshow because I think I have screwed up which deck or which one we were on here. So I apologize for the technical error. Let me go ahead and find that over here.
All good. Take your time.
Well, while we're waiting, if anybody is in the chat right now, why don't you tell us about where you're from, what you're doing right now? What kind of content goals do you have?
Okay, great. And Meg, can you see the agenda for Carissa?
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. And while we share in the chat, and I appreciate everyone sharing, we'll just talk through very quickly the main areas we want to talk about. Essentially, we want to talk about content, but it's content that's going to rank. And we'll talk about the planning phase, what we need to think about from a strategy and SEO perspective, the content creation phase, and then the distribution phase. And then we'll sum that up with key takeaways, and we'll head into that Q&A. Sarah, take it away.
All right, I will. So first we're going to be talking about, we're starting with the planning phase and then going into creation and distribution. So let's start with planning, where it all begins. And I'm going to be talking about the content strategy side. And all of this is through the lens of SEO, how to rank faster. So one thing that you want to look at first is bringing partners into the fold while you're still in the content creation phase. So what does that look like? If you're a service company, that means bring in product companies. Like, for example, I work in marketing, so I partner a lot with video marketing companies, agencies like Result Repeat that do things that I don't do and they don't do. So partner with people who have the same audience as you, but aren't direct competitors. And Then you want to find brands that they're in the same field or niche, but they're not doing what you're doing. So you guys can be referral partners, but you can also bring them in on content with creating live streams, podcasts, bringing them in for quotes. We do this a lot with like email marketing companies and video marketing companies. It's a great way to get in front of a new audience. We call it borrowing someone else's audience when you do that. And the best way to do that is start searching on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the hot spot for B2Bs, and go to LinkedIn, find some companies, some influencers too. They might just be, solopreneurs. They have the same audience as you, and start reaching out with them on LinkedIn. Comment on their posts, reach out to them with direct messages, and start building that relationship so you can start bringing them into your content. And then once you have started to build those relationships and get those content partners, you can start figuring out what kind of content you should be producing. So first, let me talk about my little Venn diagram that I do when I'm figuring out a good content theme for a client. So you want to look at your customer's problem. What do they need solved? What solution do you solve? What solution do you have? Put it right there. That little piece in the middle where it overlaps, that's where your content themes lie. And those are the topics that you want to start doing research on and talking about in your content marketing. So when you figure out those content themes, you'll want to go over to these research tools that we're talking about right here. So my favorite one is SparkToro. SparkToro basically aggregates information from different profiles and helps you figure out what podcasts they're listening to, what YouTube channels they're watching, what they're talking about on social media. And it gives you a lot of really insightful data. And then go over to Google and do a little Google search on those content themes that you have identified. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see related searches. So you could see what other people are asking on that. And at the very top of that, you'll also get related questions. So those are hot. Those are great ways to find topics for your content. Another tool is Ask the Public. It's free for like your first 5 searches, but Ask the Public aggregates all of those questions that people are asking into one place. So it'll look at, Quora, Reddit, Google, all of the things, all of the places that people ask questions, and bring it all into one place, and it'll create a word cloud for you so you can see what questions people have on your topic. And then the last tool I'll talk about is Content Harmony. Content Harmony basically aggregates everything that I just talked about into one place, and it helps you create a creative brief on that content. So it'll pull all of that information. It'll pull the right resources like .edus, .govs in there. It'll tell you which posts are ranking highest for those keywords you're going for. And it'll show you which like H1 tags that they're using and what their outlines look like. So you can, and how many words are in each of those posts. So you can really identify how to beat them, beat those competitors. And then I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, and from an SEO perspective, content's going to rank well when you are speaking to the audience about topics they are interested in or questions that they have. So we have actually found one of the best resources for topic generation is to just go inside to your sales department, your customer service team, to find out what are the common issues that your customers have, what are questions they are frequently asking. Because if you have a few people asking those questions, you can almost guarantee that there are a lot of other people searching on those particular questions or issues or topics. Also, don't forget about your industry expertise. You know your industry well, you know your business well, or if you're working with an organization, make sure if you're a marketer working with an organization, make sure you're connecting with that knowledge base because they're going to know their industry and the trends that are coming up. And you want to be speaking in the language that your audience is using. If you are selling widgets, but your audience is looking for, I don't know, doppelgangers, then you have a disconnect in terms of what they're searching and the information or content that you're providing. And one thing that Sarah touched on so well, and we'll talk about again just for emphasis, is that you don't necessarily need some sort of SEO keyword research tool. I would leverage the Google search itself. What kind of content ranks highly? Like Sarah said, how long is it? How detailed is it? What kind of multimedia are they using? Does the search result include other information like people also ask or the related searches? So just like Sarah mentioned, you can see all of this in the search results itself. So for example, in the people also ask section, this is an example from one of my clients on a topic that they've written on. We can see some other angles. Does the dust remain airborne? That can guide us to getting into a more niche topic that could be really highly focused on what our audience is looking for details about. So the Google search results itself is a great guideline for helping you to plan out and develop those content topics. And Sarah, I'll let you take back over.
All right, you want to move to the next slide?
Yes, can you see your permissionless co-marketing?
Yeah, now it's
Great.
up. I still had your SEO slide on mine. All right, let's go back to the partners and permissionless co-marketing, but now it's in our content creation phase. So we're no longer in that planning phase. We've moved on, we're in the creation phase. And I always say this is the easiest of phases. You think, oh no, this is the hardest. This is when you have to do all the creation. Yeah, it takes time, but really the strategy at the beginning and the distribution at the end are, they matter the most. So creation. With partners and permissionless co-marketing, you're bringing these influencers into your content creation and you're really amplifying that reach with them. So basically, you can take an ABM approach, account-based marketing approach to your content marketing by bringing them in now. So first thing, you've already identified what partners and influencers you want to work with during that strategy phase, and you've started to build a relationship with them. Next is the creation. So ask those partners if they want to be included in a live stream, a webinar, a podcast, and interviewed on there. Ask them if they're willing to participate by giving you a quote on an article you're writing. And bonus points if that article you're writing is in like a big publication. Let's say you're writing for Forbes. And you're bringing them in, they're really going to be happy that they were quoted in Forbes. So you get extra bonus points and more likely that they're going to share it when you do that. Now, permissionless co-marketing is not something I talked about in the strategy phase, but this is a way of bringing in influencers that might be a little bit bigger than you into your content creation and getting them to notice you. So permissionless co-marketing is when, let's say you watched a YouTube video that they had produced and you're like, that's good. That's good information. You quote them in it, link to them, give them all the credit in the world. You saw an amazing article and you want to bring it in. Okay, bring it in, link to it, and make sure you include that information about that influencer so they're extra excited to share it when you let them know that they were mentioned in your article. Same goes with like LinkedIn social media posts. Someone posts something awesome, you can embed it in your blog post. And if someone commented on your social media post and it was especially insightful, embed that in your post. The most important thing is making sure that everyone is aware that they were getting spotlighted and that they were brought into your marketing, so they're more likely to share it. And it's really something that it's a way to be able to build a relationship with someone that you might not have otherwise been able to have a conversation with or get noticed, because you're putting them on this pedestal as the expert and they're going to appreciate that. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about with the creation is that you don't want to create just one type of content. Let's say you're a writer, so you're like, everything I do has to be about blogs, but that's not the case. Because people, they absorb information in different ways. Everybody is a different type of learner. So you really need to take this multimedia approach to your content. What I like to do is create a core content. a core content piece that I'm ready and willing to commit to every single month, week, whatever I'm willing to commit to. So for me, it's a live stream. I start with that core piece of content, and then I take that and I repurpose it and create new content from it. So I have my weekly live stream interviews, and then I convert that into podcasts for an audio only experience. I'll write a blog post based off of the topic that we're talking about. I might do a compilation of the different interviews that I've conducted for my live stream and compile it into a more long form video for, let's say, a webinar. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can even go super micro by taking that interview and making it 1 to 3 minutes and putting it on YouTube, or creating an audiogram where you're just taking a little clip of genius and putting it over an image. But what you definitely want to do is create different formats of your content, so you're reaching all of those different audience members that might absorb content different ways.
And as we look at optimizing the content to rank well, you're absolutely going to think back to some recommendations you've heard in the past. So you have to have 500 words, you have to put in a bunch of keywords, you have to buy links from, other sites, things like that. But that is absolutely not what SEO optimization is about in 2022. We are really at the point where the algorithm is able to process and understand content using machine learning in such a way that we don't have to use these types of elements or rely on them at any point. So if you are creating content that speaks to a specific audience, addresses a specific topic, and includes an appropriate level of detail, then your next step is really just to send some additional signals to the search engines to say, here we are, here's what we're writing about, here's what we're posting about, here's the type of content, and please, share it in search results. And a couple ways to do that: make it easy to digest. So if it's good for the user, it's going to be good for the search engine. Essentially, what's the continual evolution of the Google algorithm is that they are going to surface content they consider to be good for users. So establish some structure. If you were talking about written content, don't make it one giant block of text. If it's easy for the user to read, if they can see sections or paragraphs or lists or bullet points, then they're absolutely going to be processing that content better. And the same goes for the search engine. But take that to the next level with your code. So if you're building written content in WordPress, in a text editor, or within a Squarespace text editor, look for the formatting button. And that's where you can set heading code. Typically, the blog post title is an H1. You don't really have to set that. That's usually typical for all of our CMSs. But when you look to section out your content, make sure you are appropriately formatting that before you publish on your site. So if you have a topic that is 3 ways to do X, make sure that each H2 section is going to be way number 1, way number 2, way number 3. You can get creative in your language, but not too creative, because at the end of the day, you want the search engine to understand what your topic is about, the hierarchy of your topic, so that it can effectively share it with the readers and eventually, your users and visitors. Adding images and video and infographics is definitely beneficial for this content. So when you are building it out, make sure you include those elements where it makes sense, depending on the type or version of the content that you're publishing. And don't forget to establish expertise by linking to relevant content on your own site. And then also linking out to reputable sites that include relevant info. So if you are writing a piece that is in a science-based topic, link out to university information or information on an organization's website that's reputable, because those send little signals to the search engine to help build your own credibility for your content.
Yeah, and I'd like to tag on to that just a minute. When you're creating that multimedia approach to your content marketing, listen to this too. You want to be able to cross-link. So you have all of these multimedia pieces of content. Make sure you're linking to each other, so you have all of those links connected. And that for any video that you create or podcast, create a show notes page so you have that text on the page, and you can build up that SEO with that. Okay, Back to that. Distribution. All right. So as I was saying at the beginning, distribution is the most important part of content marketing. If you create it, that doesn't mean people will see it. You need to distribute it or they won't. And I think that that's the biggest mistake that a lot of companies have, is that they think that creation is where it stops, where distribution is where it's at. So the first thing I would do is, when we're talking about partnerships, make sure that it's easy for them to share your content and distribute it themselves. So create social media copy for them that they could just swipe. Create show notes pages for them. Email copy, social media graphics, minor like audiogram clips, and micro videos that you can share with them. It's for them, and it makes it easy for them to be able to share your content. Making repurposing should be part of your distribution process. So as I was saying before, the audiograms, the social media posts, what I do when I'm creating my own content and my clients' content is I go through that blog post or that live stream or whatever it is, and I am writing social media posts straight from it, going through it, creating them on each section at the very least. And then encourage backlinks with your content by making it as easy as possible to share. Someone who was a guest on your show might not think, it just might not occur to them because they're busy, that they want to share it on their site. So make it easy and give them swipeable copy that they can put on their site. Give them embeddable video, podcast, whatever it is, that they can put on their site. So it's super easy for them to share. And then they get the SEO juice too. You guys can swap links for that content. And don't forget about the social media piece, because social media is now being ranked in search engines. So the content that you're creating in that social, it's giving you SEO juice too.
Yeah, and I'll take that, Sarah, because that's a really important point to remember, that every time your brand is mentioned on social, that's a signal to the search engine about your brand's positioning and awareness and where you are, in terms of the content you produce. So that's definitely something to remember. It is not in vain in terms of SEO when you are working on Facebook or Twitter or what have you.
Yeah. You might think, ugh, this doesn't matter. Why am I wasting my time with this? But it does matter. It does matter now. Okay, and this is my distribution checklist that I always go through. I actually put it at the bottom of every piece of content I create for a client so they don't forget. Create at least 3 social media posts for every asset that you create. LinkedIn newsletters are killer. So before this webinar, I sent out a LinkedIn newsletter letting them all know that this was going live in 2 hours. And it went out to 4,000 plus people right before we did this. And I do that with any piece of content. Weekly, I send it out, and I always get that traffic spike alert on my website when we're doing LinkedIn. Consider paid social media boosting, media, search. If it's like a solid piece of content, you'll want to make sure that it's getting out there, at least at the very beginning of it. Pitch to publications or spend a little bit of money in getting it sponsored on a good publication, especially if you're bringing partners into it. Email marketing always. So many people are afraid to email their subscribers. Don't be. That's why they're on your list. Make sure that you include that. And then last, make sure that you're, like going back to that last slide, you're sharing all of everything with your partners so that they can share it out too. And your partners who might not be part of that particular content piece, you have boosted them already. So they might be willing to share other pieces too that are related to their field.
From an SEO perspective, some of what you mentioned, Sarah, really is beneficial. We talked about social media already, but those links from other websites, from your partner websites or from those sponsor websites, those are backlinks to your site that help build your credibility in the eyes of the search engine. But the one big element of distribution that I don't want everyone to forget is that you can create content all day long, but there is no guarantee that Google is actually going to index it and show it in search results. And the number one hang up that I typically see is that a site has technical issues. If you have slow page loading speed, if you have broken links, if you have some technical issues, that can cause Google to not index content. And so you might need to get some help with that from a web developer or an SEO expert. But I would highly recommend is just making sure that your site is healthy, because if it is going to be considered more credible, and you're more likely to get that content indexed and shown in search results and get the traffic from the organic search that you're looking for. And one last item, which is interesting because it doesn't really have a direct SEO impact, but I don't want to forget, if you're building content on your site, to include that call to action. Basically, and this is something Sarah touched on, tell your reader what you want them to do. Ask them to share it, ask them to join your email list, fill out a form, read related content, keep them on your site a little bit longer, things like that. So really think through what your goal is for your someone who's reading and digesting your content, what you want them to do, and don't forget to include that where you can. That's absolutely going to have a secondary effect, again, on your credibility as a website and as a brand within search engines. And we are, oh my gosh, hitting 12:27. So we're just going to talk about key takeaways. I'll dip into SEO really quickly. You want to make sure you're talking to your audience in their language and structuring your format and your content well. And if you're getting some backlinks from other sites and you make sure your site is technically healthy, that's all going to lead to a stronger performance for your content in organic search results.
And on my end, the content strategy end, bring influencers into your content creation process. So they're at the very beginning, you're spotlighting them, and they're more willing to link back to your content and share it out. Find the right content topics. You need to make sure that they are interested in what you're writing about. So create that Venn diagram of their problem, your solution, and your content themes lie right in the middle. Distribution is the most important part of content creation. So have a checklist that you follow every single time, so you don't forget all of the different ways that you can distribute your content, and make repurposing part of your distribution strategy. And repurpose everything. There is literally nothing that you can't repurpose. You could take a blog post and expand. Actually, someone asked a question, so I'll just answer it right here. They asked a question in the chat about repurposing old content. You could literally take an old blog post and update it. You could take a series of blog posts and convert it into an ebook or guide just by compiling them. Take old interviews from videos and create a podcast or audiograms from it. As long as the information that you're sharing is evergreen, you can repurpose any of it.
Great. So let me go ahead and exit, and we can answer any questions that we might have that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, we have a few of them. How to go about declining lower authority backlink requests is one of them.
That's a great question. And there's not much you can do about other sites linking to you. And if you ever look at a backlink analysis tool, you're going to see all kinds of websites that look ridiculous and maybe come from different countries or come from wherever, or they seem spammy. Google 99% of the time will eliminate those from consideration. If they are not a website with credibility, if they are a known spammer, Google really eliminates that, and you will not get penalized for that. So again, those low authority backlinks might be coming your way, but it's not going to hurt you. And at that point, you could certainly, if somebody wanted and asked to link to you, you could tell them no all day long. But at the end of the day, you can't do much about the actual link.
Along the same vein, there was a second question that was similar. When accepting backlinks from other sources, do you have recommendations for filtering or recognizing sources that have higher authority versus lower authority?
And Sarah, I saw you put an answer in there that it's pretty much right on. There's some extra credibility given to websites that are related to the government.gov, education.edu, organizations.org. These signals used to be higher in the past. They're not as strong any longer, but those are the types of organizations that the Google and search engines consider to be typically credible websites with strong content. And if they are linking to you, then you are going to get some value out of that, because it's going to help boost your own credibility. So if you are actually going out there and searching for a partner or searching for those particular types of links, those are areas you could look for. And it goes both ways. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're creating a link on your website that's going to another one, consider some of those .gov, .edu, .org sites that are a little bit higher value or considered more credible.
And you had a good point there when you're talking about bringing in new partners. You can look up their I don't know, I'm going to call it credibility score, their domain score, before reaching out to them to see how credible Google sees them and the value that you'd receive from getting those backlinks.
And I will say that at the end of the day, those domain authority scores don't actually affect your rankings. So if you were to get a link from a lower authority domain, it's not necessarily going to affect your rankings, but it helps you to judge, like you said, judging that credibility and where there might be some potential value down the line.
Exactly. I think that we covered all of the questions. I'm going to scan through the Q&A real quick. Yeah, I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, if any of this feels like a lot, we're always here to help, with SEO or content. You can feel free to reach out to Sarah or to Katie or to anyone at either of our companies if you need a hand. Otherwise, I hope you got some great tips from today's webinar that you can take back to your own marketing and employ right away. Thank you again to our panelists. Really appreciate your time and your expertise today. And we look forward to seeing all of you next month at our next Lunch and Learn.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.